At my son's wedding, my daughter-in-law said, "The help eats in the kitchen." I smiled, dialed my phone, and said, "Cancel the $30 million contract." My son went pale, realizing what he had lost. The silence that followed was instant. Not a single fork moved. The band was still playing their soft instrumental in the background, but nobody was listening. Some guests looked around, unsure if they had heard me correctly. Others stared at their plates. My son, Aaron, was standing only a few feet away, his mouth slightly open, frozen. He didn't come after me. I didn't make a scene. I didn't need to. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from, and if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing. I walked back to my table at the far end of the tent, near the kitchen entrance where I had been placed, away from the family table, near the staff trays and champagne refills. No name card, no seat at the family row. I was just there. Technically, I sat down slowly. My hands trembled just enough for me to need both to lift the wine glass. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was that hollow tightness in the chest you get when humiliation meets realization. Not long before the ceremony began, I had been standing near the entrance when Madison, my daughter-in-law, looked me over and turned to the waiter beside. She's fine," she said with a dismissive tone. "The help can eat in the kitchen." She didn't whisper it. She didn't laugh after. She just said it as if I were invisible. I should have walked away right then. But instead, I stood there, smiling. That same smile I had learned to use during years of swallowing pride. And when I sat down again, no one said a word. Not Madison. Not Aaron. Not her family. Not even my sister, who had heard it all and quickly looked down at her phone like it was an escape hatch. 10 minutes later, I made the call. "Cancel the $30 million contract," I told Harold. No explanation, no emotion, just the words. Harold, my attorney, didn't ask why. He didn't need to. That contract was the acquisition deal I had been working on for almost a year. It would have been the merger that finally gave Aaron's company the capital it needed to stay afloat. I had agreed to fund it through my investment trust, with my name kept off the books, at Aaron's request, of course. He didn't want the investors to know that Mommy was bailing him out, but they all knew. Everyone except Madison, apparently. The deal was already signed, but not executed. That's why I had my phone on me at the wedding. Harold was waiting for final confirmation, scheduled for the morning after. That contract was my wedding gift to them. Or it was. I didn't stay until the cake. I left right after the first dance. Aaron didn't follow me to the parking lot. Madison didn't notice I was gone until someone came to ask who would be settling the bill for the second set of musicians. I heard from the valet boy, one of the few people who looked me in the eye that evening, that there was confusion about which card to charge. Apparently, the corporate card they had used was under review. I got in my car and sat in silence for a long time before I drove home. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I made a cup of tea. I sat on my couch with my shoes still on and looked around my quiet home. The living room lamp buzzed faintly. It was the only sound in the room. I remembered all the things I had paid for over the years, the down payment on their first apartment, the kitchen remodel Madison insisted on when they moved to the suburbs, the $15,000 Madison spent on the pre-wedding spa package for her and her bridesmaids. She had sent me the invoice as a gentle reminder with a heart emoji. I had paid it all without questions, without hesitation. That was my mistake. Aaron hadn't always been like this. I remember the boy who used to call me every time he got a B+ in school, apologizing like it was the end of the world. The boy who stayed up all night helping me with tax forms when I started my small business after his father died. The boy who once told me, "Mom, I'm gonna take care of you one day. Just wait." I guess he forgot. Or maybe it was Madison's influence. Or maybe it was just easier to forget the people who made things easy for you. The next morning, the calls began. First Harold, confirming that the deal was off, then Aaron. 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails. "Mom, What the hell are you doing? Call me back, please. I swear, if you don't explain. I didn't listen to the rest. I deleted them. I blocked. His number. It wasn't revenge, it was clarity. I had raised a man who stood there while his wife degraded me and said nothing. That wasn't a son. That was a stranger in a rented tuxedo. That Monday, Madison posted wedding photos on her Instagram. I wasn't in a single one. She captioned them, "Surrounded by love and support. Couldn't ask for a more perfect family." The comments were filled with hearts and congratulations from people I didn't know. Her family. Her people. I wasn't. Tagged. I wasn't thanked. But I saw it. One of the photos showed Madison and her mother toasting champagne, laughing. My son sat next to them, eyes glassy. That expression on his face, it wasn't joy. It was realization. It was the moment he understood. She thought I was the help, but I was the one keeping the lights on. And now? They'll have to see what happens when the help doesn't show up. I woke up before the sun. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that lets you hear every little sound. Your own breath, the settling of the walls, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about Madison's voice, the way she said it, like I wasn't a person, like I didn't belong. The help eats in the kitchen. The words had bounced around in my head all night. Not because they hurt, though they did, but because she meant them. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a slip. It was deliberate. And Aaron let it happen. That was the part that stayed with me more than anything else. My own son heard it and chose silence. At 6:12 a.m., I made coffee. I stood at the window while the machine sputtered and steamed. Outside, the street was still, the sky pale and flat. A jogger passed with headphones on. I wondered if anyone at the wedding had gone home thinking about what had happened. Probably not. At 7:03, the doorbell rang. I didn't move. It rang again. When I finally opened the door, Aaron was standing there, eyes red, hair messy, no jacket, tie loosened, like he hadn't gone to bed either. "Can I come in?" he asked. I looked at him. He looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I just finally saw him as he was. I stepped aside. He walked in, standing in the middle of the living room like he didn't know what to do with himself. "You canceled the contract," he said. "No greeting, no apology. Just that." I nodded. "You didn't even talk to me first." "No," I said. "I didn't." He let out a dry laugh and sat down on the edge of the couch. His hands were shaking a little. I said nothing. I just stood there. "Do you have any idea what you did to me?" he said, looking up at me. "Do you even understand what that deal meant?" "I understand exactly what it meant," I said. "It meant that you thought you could use my money and still treat me like I wasn't part of your life." "I never said that." "You didn't have to." He stood up again, pacing. "Madison was just nervous. It was a stupid comment. She didn't mean anything by it." I raised my eyebrows. "Then why didn't you say something when she said it?" He stopped walking. "You think I didn't notice you just standing there?" I asked. "You think I didn't see you pretend it didn't happen?" I didn't want to make a scene. "No, Aaron. You didn't want to choose." He looked away. "That deal," I continued, "was a gift. A private one. I never asked you for anything in return. Not a thank you, not a favor. Just respect. That's it. And if that's too much to expect, then maybe you shouldn't be in business." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "I raised you better than this," I said, quieter now. "Or, at least I thought I did." He sat back down, rubbing his forehead. "So what now? You're just cutting me off?" I didn't answer right away. I walked into the kitchen, took a clean mug from the cabinet, and poured him a coffee. I set it in front of him without a word. "I'm not cutting you off," I finally said. "I'm stepping away." He looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not going to be the one fixing your life for you anymore. I'm not paying for things behind the scenes. I'm not investing in your company. I'm not making things easier just so you can pretend I don't exist when it's inconvenient. He stared at the coffee but didn't touch it. You want to be a man? Be one. Build your company on your own terms. Pay your own bills. Stand by your wife's behavior if that's who you married. But don't come here expecting me to clean up after you. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said. I know you didn't. But you let it happen anyway. He stayed another 10 minutes. He didn't argue. He didn't yell. He just sat there processing. Before he left, he looked at me and asked, "Are you ever going to forgive me?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "That depends on what kind of man you choose to be from here." He nodded slowly and left without saying goodbye. That afternoon, I got an email from Harold. He confirmed that all assets from the merger negotiations had been redirected and that my trust had been updated to reflect new restrictions. No distributions to third parties without direct approval. At 5:20 p.m., I got another email. This one, from Madison. The subject line was, "Your behavior." I didn't open it. I deleted it. At 6:45, my sister Lorraine called. "What happened?" she asked. "Everyone's talking about you. Madison's family is furious." I sat on the couch and listened. "You humiliated them," she said. "They said you made a scene." "I didn't make a scene, Lorraine. I made a decision." She went quiet. "You were there," I said. "You heard what she said." "Yeah," she admitted finally. "I did. I just didn't know what to say." "You could have said, 'Don't talk to my sister like that.' That would have been a start." "I know," she said quietly. We hung up not long after. That night, I went through old paperwork, financial records, contracts, donation receipts. I kept finding things I had done for Aaron and Madison over the years. Payments I had made, agreements I had signed on their behalf. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just done. By the time I went to bed, I had already called my accountant and left a message. It was time to simplify some things. And in the silence of my room, I realized I had nothing left to give them, and I finally felt okay with that. The following morning, I woke up to 37 new messages. Not all of them were from Aaron and Madison, but most were. A few came from members of Madison's family, names I barely recognized, people I had only ever seen at the engagement party or on some RSVP list for the wedding. One message from someone named Aunt Carla said, "We are deeply disappointed in your actions." Madison's mother was in tears. Another read, "You embarrassed the bride. Shame on you." I didn't reply to any of them. By 9:15 a.m., Aaron had called twice already. I watched the phone ring both times. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Then I turned the ringer off and set it face down. At 10:07, there was a knock at the bar. During this time, I looked through the peephole before opening it. Madison. I opened the door halfway. She was still dressed like she came from an ad. Perfectly ironed shirt, pressed trousers, and makeup that looked expensive. But her face was tense, eyes slightly puffy. She hadn't come to apologize. I could see that before she even said a word. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stood back, wordless, and let her in. She walked to the living room like she had been here 100 times, which, to be clear, she had. I had hosted birthdays here, holidays, baby showers for her friends when she didn't have the space in her place. She used to treat my house like a convenient backdrop for things she didn't want to organize herself. But she never saw it as mine. Not really. I sat down in my usual chair. She sat across from me on the edge of the couch. "I'll just get straight to the point," she started. "What you did at our wedding was completely inappropriate." I didn't respond. I waited. "You embarrassed my family," she continued. "My parents were humiliated. I was humiliated. There were guests there, important people, and everyone was talking about it." I looked at her and said, "You referred to me as the help." Her eyes narrowed. "It was a joke." "No, it wasn't. I didn't mean it the way it sounded." I stayed silent. Let her fill the silence. "You've always been difficult," she said, crossing her arms. You act like you're better than everyone, and Aaron's always defending you. I've tried to include you. I've tried to be nice. I nodded slowly. By seating me near the kitchen? By not including me in a single photo? Not even one with my own son? She paused. I asked the photographer to focus on close family. I am close family. She flinched at that. There was a long pause before she spoke again. What's done is done, she said. But you canceling the contract like that? It hurt Aaron's company. You know that, right? I know. She stood up. You made your point. You've punished us enough. I raised an eyebrow. You think this is about punishment? She gave me a cold look. We needed that deal. No, I corrected. You wanted that deal, and you thought you were entitled to it. She didn't answer. I stood too, walking toward the door. Is there anything else? I asked. Madison stood there, hesitating for a moment like she wanted to say something else, but instead she pulled out a manila envelope from her purse. What's this? She set it on the table. Some paperwork Aaron wanted you to look over. He said you'd know what it's about. I didn't touch it. She turned without another word and walked out. I waited until the door clicked shut before I sat back down and opened the envelope. Inside were 2 documents. One was a request to reinstate the funding agreement through a new holding company under Madison's father's name. The second was a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent me from discussing anything related to the funding, the wedding, or my association with the business, as it was phrased. I read it twice. Then I laughed. For the first time in days, I actually laughed out loud. They thought I would sign that. I called Harold immediately. I'm bringing you something, I said. You're going to want to see it. By the time I arrived at his office, Harold already had coffee waiting and an extra copy of the paperwork printed out. I'm guessing this is their version of damage control, he said, after skimming the documents. They want me to shut up and wire the money back in. Harold nodded. The structure of this holding company is sketchy. All new names. None of them trace back to Aaron directly. They're trying to move it through Madison's family now. Can they do that? Not without your signature. I sat back in the chair, arms crossed. Harold looked at me over his glasses. What do you want to do? I want to rewrite the trust. Aaron's name comes off everything. No future access, no distributions, nothing. Are you sure? I was sure the moment she said I was the help. Harold gave a single nod and started the process. Back home, I spent the afternoon cleaning out the hall closet. I pulled out old boxes I hadn't looked at in years, things from when Aaron was little. School drawings, trophies, birthday cards. I sat on the floor for a while, looking through them. One card stood out. It was from when he was 12, a Mother's Day card. On the front was a cartoon drawing of a kid hugging a woman. Inside, he'd written, "Thanks for always being on my side. I'll never forget everything you do for me." I stared at that card for a long time, then I put it back in the box and closed the lid. The next morning, Madison emailed again. Subject line, "Please read." I didn't. I archived it. That night, Aaron called from a different number. I picked up. "I didn't know she was going to bring you that NDA," he said immediately. "That was her idea. You didn't stop her. I wasn't home when she left. And when you saw it?" He paused. "I didn't think you'd take it seriously. I took it seriously enough to block you out of the trust." He went quiet. "I get it," he said finally. "I really do. I'm asking you not to walk away completely. I already did. Mom, I was the only one holding things together for years, and you let someone treat me like furniture." There was nothing more to say. I hung up, and for once I didn't feel guilty. 3 days after I blocked Aaron's number again, someone rang the doorbell around 4:40 p.m. I had just sat down with a sandwich and a glass of water. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the peephole, I saw a woman standing stiffly on the porch in a beige pantsuit, holding her purse with both hands. Madison's mother. I hadn't seen her up close since the wedding. We hadn't spoken directly in over a year. At the rehearsal dinner, she had barely acknowledged me. At the wedding itself, she never said a word. And now, here she was. I opened the door just enough to speak. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice composed. "May I have a moment of your time?" I looked at her for a second, then stepped back. She walked inside carefully, like she wasn't sure if I would change my mind halfway through. "Would you like to sit?" I asked. "No, thank you. I won't. Be long." She stood in the middle of the room, looking around like she was surprised by how ordinary the house was. Or maybe she was just buying time. "I wanted to come in person," she started, "because I didn't think an email or a phone call would be appropriate." I waited. She continued. "Madison is upset. Aaron is not doing well. He's lost several investors since the merger fell apart, and there's talk of layoffs at his office." I said nothing. "I understand you were hurt," she added. "But don't you think this has gone far enough?" I gave her a look. "You came here to tell me I've made my point?" She cleared her throat. "I came to ask you to consider stepping back, quietly, for the sake of the family." There it was. The word they all liked, family. "I don't think you understand what happened," I said, keeping my voice calm. She raised her eyebrows. "You canceled a $30 million deal, without warning, and then publicly embarrassed Madison at her own wedding." She embarrassed herself. I just responded, "By blowing up their future?" "No," I said. "By refusing to let people pretend I'm invisible." She looked annoyed, like I was being dramatic. "Look," she said, "I know Madison can be blunt, but it was her wedding day. She was under stress. And that comment, that unfortunate phrase, 'The help eats in the kitchen,'" I reminded her. "Yes," she admitted quickly, eyes darting away. It wasn't meant how it sounded. It sounded exactly how she meant it." She pursed her lips. "Regardless, can't you just put it behind you? Aaron's worked so hard. He's trying to build something. He's your son." I didn't respond right away. I walked to the shelf near the window and picked up a small ceramic frame. It was a photo of Aaron and me at his college graduation. He had his arm around me, smiling. Back when he used to say I was the one person who believed in him when no one else did, I handed her the photo. "Look at that," I said. "That's what I thought I was supporting." She looked at it briefly, then handed it back. "You still can," she said. "He made a mistake. But don't ruin his life over one mistake." "It wasn't one mistake," I said. "It was years of taking and never once looking back. Years of letting Madison speak for both of them. Years of deciding I wasn't someone to be respected, only used." Her eyes hardened. "You sound vindictive." "No, I sound done." She didn't expect that. I walked toward the door and opened it. "Thank you for stopping by," I said plainly. She stood there for a second longer, as if waiting for me to say something else. But I didn't. She walked out without another word. That night I called Harold and told him to move forward with the revised estate plan. Not just the trust, everything. I wanted a new will drafted, new power of attorney documents, the house title officially adjusted, everything clean, no room for negotiation. He said he'd schedule the first signing for the following week. The next morning, the calls started again. This time from Aaron's business partner, Kyle. He left a message that I actually listened to, mostly because I hadn't heard his voice in over a year. "Hey, this is Kyle," he said. "I don't want to get in the middle of anything personal, but we're in real trouble over here. I know Aaron messed up, but the company's hanging by a thread. If there's any chance we could talk, just professionally, maybe we can salvage what's left." I played it twice. Then I deleted it. By noon, I had 3 more messages. One from someone named Tina, an administrative assistant at Aaron's office. One from a vendor I recognized from the canceled merger. And one, again, from Madison. This one had no subject, just a single line in the preview. "You've proven your point. Now fix it." I didn't even open it. That afternoon, I ran errands. I went to the grocery store. I picked up a prescription. I stopped by the dry cleaner. For the first time in months, nobody asked me about Aaron. Nobody brought up the wedding. Nobody tiptoed around me. It felt normal. It felt good. When I got back home, I opened a drawer in the hallway cabinet and pulled out an old folder. Inside were bank statements, tax returns, invoices, documentation of everything I'd ever paid for Aaron or Madison in the past decade. I spent the next 2 hours scanning each one and uploading them to a secure drive. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't preparing for a lawsuit or public's confrontation. I just wanted to have it all in one place, because for the first time in my life I was ready to stop pretending it hadn't happened. Every dollar I had sent, every balance I had covered, every tuition payment, every doctor's bill, every plane ticket, every business cost disguised as a family favor. I finished around 7 p.m. and made dinner, just for me. It was quiet, and that quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. On the second Monday of November, I received a cream-colored envelope in the mail. No return address, just my name written in black cursive. Inside was an invitation, thick cardstock, trimmed in gold foil. You are cordially invited to a family Thanksgiving dinner, Thursday, November 23rd, 5 p.m. It was signed, Aaron and Madison. There was no note, no apology, no explanation, just a formal invitation like nothing had happened. As if we were still close, as if the past months hadn't occurred, as if I hadn't cut off their funding, blocked their numbers, and rewritten my entire estate. It felt like bait. I placed the invitation on the kitchen counter and didn't touch it for 2 days. On Wednesday, I got a call from Lorraine, my sister. "So, are you going?" she asked. "To what?" "Thanksgiving. At Aaron's place." I let the silence answer. She sighed. "He told me you got the invitation, said you didn't respond. That was on purpose. He says they're trying, that they want to make things right." I leaned against the counter. "Is that what you think too?" "I don't know what to think," she said. "But I know what it's like to let things go too far. Your family. All of you. Family is what they remember I am when they need something," I said. "The rest of the time, I'm just in the way." She didn't argue. I didn't ask if she was going. I already knew. The morning of Thanksgiving, I got up early. I had no plans, no guests, no dinner to host. I had canceled everything after the wedding incident. I hadn't wanted to see anyone. But something about that empty invitation, the calculated tone of it, sat with me. Around 11 a.m., I made a list. Not a shopping list, not a to-do list. I wrote down, in order, every financial transfer I had ever made to Aaron since he turned 23. I checked bank records, emails, and text receipts. By the time I stopped, the total was over $614,000. That didn't include gifts. That didn't include the contract I canceled. That didn't include the credit card they'd used for years, an extension from my account, which I had finally shut down in September. It was just the basics: loans, rent, tuition, bailouts, silent rescue after silent rescue, and I had done it all without ever being officially recognized for any of it. At 3:30 p.m., I got a message from Aaron. "I hope you'll come. It would mean a lot. Madison's cooking." I didn't respond. At 4:52 p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened. It expecting a neighbor, maybe a delivery. It was Aaron. He stood on the porch holding a pie dish. "Pumpkin," he said. "Madison made it. She asked me to drop it off." I stared at it. She could have sent a message with it, or said something herself. He shrugged. "She figured you'd rather see me than her." I said nothing. He cleared his throat. "She's trying, Mom. We both are." "She hasn't apologized. She's stubborn." "And you?" He looked at the pie. "I'm trying to keep the peace." I stepped aside and let him in. He placed the pie on the table. "Listen," he said. "I know things got out of hand. The funding, the trust. I should have talked to you before bringing Madison into any of it. I made a mistake. I crossed my arms. You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose not to defend me. You chose to let her speak for both of you. You chose to build a company with my money and still pretend I was just another guest. He didn't deny it. I thought I could fix it, he said. With time. I looked at him. You invited me today not because you miss me. You invited me because you think I'm still holding something back. You think I'll change my mind if I feel included. He blinked. That's not true. You want me at the table again because you're scared you've really lost the lifeline. No, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I just laid it out. You used me, Aaron. You let her use me. And now that the money's gone, the seat near the kitchen isn't enough anymore. He looked down at his shoes. I walked over to the pie and opened the lid. It looked nice. Neat, professional. Probably ordered from a bakery. I picked it up and handed it back to him. You can keep it, I said. I didn't come here to bribe you. You came here because you don't know what it looks like when someone finally holds a boundary. He didn't argue. Instead, he said something that surprised me. Grandma would have said I deserve this. I looked at him for a moment. She might have. She always liked you more. She respected me. He nodded. I used to. I still do. I messed up. I walked him to the door. I'm not saying we'll never talk again, I said. But it won't happen today. Not like this. Not because you brought pie. He gave a tight nod and walked down the steps. That evening, I made myself a small dinner. Roasted vegetables, a slice of turkey from the store, cranberry from a can. I ate in silence. No TV, no music. At 7:19 p.m., my phone lit up with a photo. It was from Lorraine, a group shot at Aaron's Thanksgiving dinner. Madison in the center, holding a wine glass. Aaron behind her. My chair, once always reserved for me, was empty. They didn't even try to hide it. I looked at the photo for a second, then deleted it. I didn't need a seat at that table anymore. In the days following Thanksgiving, I heard nothing from Aaron. No texts, no emails, no surprise visits. I figured maybe he finally understood, or maybe he was just regrouping. With Aaron, silence never lasted long. On December 3rd, a letter arrived. Not an envelope. A letter, hand-delivered and signed by a courier. It was from Madison. It was 4 pages long, typed, formal, addressed to me like I was a business partner. She started by expressing her deep disappointment in how I had chosen to distance myself from family. She listed all the reasons why she believed I had overreacted to a passing comment. She then detailed the financial consequences my actions had caused: layoffs at Aaron's firm, investors pulling out, delayed product launches. Then, in the last paragraph, she made a suggestion. She proposed that I reinstate limited support to Aaron's business under strict terms, including a legal mediator, to avoid further misunderstandings. And to close the letter, she added, "You've made your position clear. Now it's time to be an adult and fix what you broke." I read it once, then I placed it in a drawer with the rest of the documents I'd been collecting. I wasn't surprised, not even angry, but I was done. I picked up the phone and called Harold. "I want to finalize everything," I told him. "The trust, the will, the house. I want it all locked." He scheduled a final signing for the following Tuesday. When I arrived at Harold's office, he had the documents ready. The new trust now excluded Aaron completely. Every asset had been redirected to a foundation I had quietly established in October. One focused on funding education for women over 50 returning to the workforce. I signed the papers without hesitation. Harold looked at me when I finished. "You sure you want to do this?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He nodded and sealed the file. On the way home, I stopped by the florist. I hadn't bought flowers for myself in years. I picked up a simple bouquet, nothing fancy. Just something for the table. When I got home, there were 2 voicemails waiting. The first was from Lorraine. Aaron's been calling me. He says you're cutting him out permanently. I told him I didn't know anything. He's upset. Says he wants a meeting. Wants to make things right. The second was from Aaron. Mom, I need to talk to you. Please. I know I've made mistakes. I know things got out of hand. But I'm still your son. That sentence stuck with me. I'm still your son. He was right. But he wasn't acting like one. I didn't call back. A week later, I got another delivery. A package this time. Inside was a photo album. On the first page, a handwritten note from Aaron. I found these. Thought you might want them back. I'm sorry, Mom. I flipped through the album. It was filled with photos of us, me and Aaron, spanning decades. Him as a baby, his first birthday, Halloween costumes, high school graduation, him holding up his acceptance letter to college. All pictures I had taken. All pictures I thought were lost. He'd kept them. Maybe that meant something. I closed the album and placed it on a shelf. That weekend, I was invited to a community luncheon at the local library. Nothing fancy, just coffee, cookies, and a few speeches. It was part of the early work for the foundation I was funding. I wasn't planning to speak, but they asked if I'd say a few words. I kept it short. I said that sometimes people lose track of who they are when they spend too long giving to others who don't see them. And sometimes, the hardest thing isn't losing those people. It's learning that you're finally allowed to stop giving. When I sat down, the room was quiet. Afterward, one of the women, Mary, in her 60s, a retired nurse, came up to me and said, "I wish I'd done what you did 20 years ago." I nodded. Took me too long, too. Christmas came. I didn't hear from Aaron. I didn't expect to. I spent the day with Lorraine, her kids, and a few friends. We cooked together, played cards, laughed. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm. No tension, no forced smiles, no silent judgment. Just peace. On New Year's Eve, I sent one text to Aaron. Just 3 words. "I'm still here." He didn't reply. That was okay. It wasn't an invitation. It wasn't a promise. It was a fact. I was still here, still standing, still choosing my own peace, and that would have to be enough.